Bradley Beal was officially traded to the Phoenix Suns. The big question looms as to where will Chris Paul land, right? The Washington Wizards are not going to keep him. Two options are kind of what is out in the ether. Either they are going to waive him, maybe waive and stretch, but very likely he's not going to play for the Washington Wizards, or they're going to end up trading him, and they are currently in the process of looking to potentially trade Chris Paul to another contender. That's why the trade for Bradley Beal hasn't been made official yet, but it should be coming in the next day or so. They don't really need to rush, because they do have until the 28th technically, but more likely than not, it's kind of looking like he's going to end up getting waived, and then he would have his choice of where he wants to go, where he wants to sign. There are several teams that seem to be interested in Chris Paul. Based on recent reports, you had the Golden State Warriors who tried to make a trade for Chris Paul, apparently. We'd love to see kind of how that would have shaped up and why the Golden State Warriors would have wanted Chris Paul, unless Chris Paul is willing to accept a bench role. Maybe that's why the trade didn't go through. But again, if he ends up getting waived, then there are plenty of suitors, right? The Clippers really want Chris Paul. The Bucks make a little sense, and he's been linked to the Bucks in the past. You have like Philadelphia. You have maybe some of these young teams that would love to have a kind of a veteran leader come in the scope of Chris Paul to kind of help the young guys, the young core, and just growth development. Maybe they have a point guard that they'd love to learn from Chris Paul. I mean, Chris Paul is one of the greatest point guards ever, point god. And so it would be very interesting to see how this plays out. Now, the Clippers are kind of the team that seem to be, based on all the reports, trying to make a push to acquire Chris Paul, that they are working to try to make a deal to get done and be kind of that third team attached to the Suns and the Wizards trade in an attempt to land Chris Paul. I don't really see it. It's kind of one of those things, I'll believe it when I see it. One, how much does Chris Paul want to go to the Clippers? Like, if he's fine, if he's like, yeah, I'll play for the Clippers again, I'm all for it, then I think he goes to the Clippers. I think that they'll work out that trade. The Clippers do have a bunch of expiring contracts, so they could do something like that. They don't really have a lot as far as assets go, but the Wizards just seem to be, hey, just take guys. We don't even care about assets based on how things are shaping up. So the Clippers could very well trade for Chris Paul. I don't really see it. I don't really buy it. It's kind of one of those things where I think it would have happened by now. But you never really know. Because, I mean, it's pretty straightforward in a trade for Chris Paul, right? Like, you're not going to get a huge return, a huge yield. Everyone knows they're not going to keep Chris Paul. They're just they don't want to take back long-term salary. So the Clippers, all they'd have to do is be like, hey, here's our 3 guys or whatever that are all expiring contracts. We'll do that swap. We'll throw you a couple seconds or something for helping us get Chris Paul. And then there you go. It's done. It's over with. There are reports that if he gets waived, then he would go and sign with the Clippers. Maybe. I mean, I guess the logic is like, if you're the Clippers and you know he's coming, right? Like, let's say you work it out and maybe Chris Paul's said, like, hey, when I get waived, I'm going to come to you, keep the depth. So that way, we can try to go for a championship run here. That could be a possibility because the Clippers do have a lot of depth. So they could be looking at it as like, why would we trade all of these assets to go land Chris Paul when we could just wait, sign him for a vet minimum, and we get to keep all of our guys, especially with a roster of Chris Paul, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, who are all extremely injury prone. That is something that you'd imagine they would want to like have as much depth as possible. So I could see that kind of playing out. I could see that kind of being the scenario. But I just think if Chris Paul gets waived, then he's not going to the Clippers. He's going to the LA team and the Lakers, right? I mean, it makes the most sense. Reports from the moment the waiver buyout potential trade was announced, it was like he's going to the Lakers. Lots of reports about the camps and stuff have said like he wants to go to Lakers. He's going to go to Lakers, play with his buddy LeBron. The Lakers seem really adamant about getting Chris Paul. We even got reports today that the Lakers' plan A is to acquire Chris Paul via signing him, not trade. The Lakers aren't going to trade for him. $25 million, they're not going to go trade for him. If they're going to trade for anybody, they're going to go trade for some younger pieces or pieces that they believe will put them over the top. they're going to wait patiently, wait for Chris Paul to get waived or bought out or stretched or whatever they end up deciding to do. And then the Lakers would sign him. And then they also want to sign, of course, Rui Hachimura and Austin Reaves. That's kind of like their three big free agent signings. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's all that they want to do. It just means, like, as far as free agency goes, the big signings that the Lakers will do will very likely be those three guys. So Chris Paul will probably either get the taxpayer mid-level is probably my guess. We'll see what happens with D'Angelo Russell. So my guess is they re-sign Rui, they re-sign Austin Reaves, they bring in Chris Paul, and then they look to maybe move Beasley, Mo Bamba, and D'Angelo Russell along with the 17th pick and 2029th pick. Because if you got Chris Paul, at that point, you're going all in, right? You're not going to wait around and try to get some guys that you're going to develop over the next 3 years. You're trying to win an NBA championship this year and hopefully next year. That would be the goal. So my guess is they bring in Chris Paul. If you see Chris Paul on the Lakers or signing with the Lakers, just know that the Lakers are probably pushing their chips to the table to go all in on a guy, whoever that guy is. Now, they could keep D'Angelo Russell. There have been some reports that say they like the idea of D'Lo and Chris Paul, but they also like the idea of Dennis Schroeder and Chris Paul. And if you re-sign Dennis Schroeder, you don't really have a need for D'Angelo Russell, so I'd imagine that they would want to go and unload him. As far as the D'Angelo Russell front goes, the Lakers are actually looking to maybe do a front-loaded contract. So, like, let's say you'd give him, 4 years, $80 million. What they would like to do is do a front-loaded contract to where maybe the first 2-3 years, he would get like $25 million a year, and then the last 2 years or so, he would get like $15 million or whatever, right? That would very likely be the case that they would do, which I don't think is a bad idea. Right? Because if you front load the first 2 years, then the heavy end of his contract makes a world of sense, because now it lines up with LeBron James and Anthony Davis and all that stuff. Well, when when LeBron's ready to leave and whatever you decide to do with Anthony Davis, well, now D'Lo's money becomes very small, very thin, so it makes it easier to go and kind of replace LeBron James and go maybe get another star, something along those lines. So I do like the idea. I do think that makes a lot of sense for the Lakers. But look for the Lakers to go and try to acquire Chris Paul if he gets waived or traded or whatever. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think about Chris Paul? What do you think about that being the plan A? Do you think he goes to another team? Do you think, he's a lock to go to the Lakers? I just think if he gets traded, then there you have it. If he gets waived at all, he's going to Lakers. I do. I just think that that's the destination he's going to go. He'll choose the Lakers and play with his buddy LeBron and try to go win an NBA championship. That's my guess. But if he gets traded, he's going to the Lakers. I think it makes the most sense for him. I think it makes a lot of sense for the Lakers. I'm just curious, what do they do from that point on, right? So, like, let's say tomorrow Chris Paul gets waived and we get the news that he is heading to the Lakers, because you'd imagine all this is going to happen before the draft, right? That's very likely going to be the case. This will get done before Thursday's draft. So in the next day or two, Chris Paul is going to be on a new team one way or another. So once the Lakers know that, I do expect the Lakers to make a push to try to upgrade the roster, bring in some other talent, and kind of go all in. I know a lot of people want the Lakers to stay young and, go get a guy in the draft and develop him and stuff. You got LeBron James, you got Anthony Davis, you're going to go get Chris Paul. You were just in the Western Conference Finals. You're right there. Why would you not try to capitalize on the window? Yes, we need to think about post LeBron, because that'll be here before we know it. But I just think you have an opportunity, right? The Lakers have 17 NBA championships for a reason. They have it because when they have these windows, they usually go for it. And when they go for it, they usually get it. They've had some flops. They've had some moments that just didn't pan out. But usually they line up and they get what they want to get. So I fully expect the Lakers to make that push to go all in, go get the pieces that they feel will put them over the top. And you worry about, you still would have a very young core. So it's not like you're the 2021 2022 Lakers where it's just a bunch of old guys, and it's like, what are you going to do in like 2 years, 3 years if this works, even if this does work, right? No, like you still have a very good young core even after, right? And you can go look for those other guys. I think that makes the most sense. But anyway, again, let me know your thoughts and opinions. However you feel, love to hear it. Let me know.